Yo, Mecha here. So I know normally that this is not the format I use for these videos, but I don't want to just have a screen of gameplay that has not progressed that much since the previous devlog. The only things I've really changed are some attack timing stuff, which visually that won't matter. I added shadows and moved the health bars up to the proper position. And that's about it. So that's in terms of what's new. But I'm going to be taking this video as an opportunity to explain what takeover is. And I guess kind of what Rise was as well. May get to that, may not. Probably won't actually. But this video exists to explain what takeover is going to be, what the overall scope of the project is, and etc. So yeah. So the current plan with takeover is to have stages in a pretty similar format to Rise, this time with checkpoints for most levels. Now, because the format of the stages overall in Rise worked fine. That's not something that needed to be changed. Enemy AI, and player skills were the major problems in Rise, and those are being addressed in takeover. But the overall way stages were made in Rise weren't too big an issue, like the moving screen system, stuff like that. May tweak it for some of the stages in takeover, but it's not a necessity as takeover doesn't really need any changes. Still functions the way it should. The screen scrolling thing wasn't an innate problem with Rise, is what I'm saying. Now, the scope of playable characters. The way takeover will work is for the first 6 stages, you will unlock a character for every level, and the first stage unlocks 2 characters, and stage 7 unlocks 0. So, now if you're curious why that's set up that way, I don't want to have any characters unlocked by beating the game, but as you progress, you unlock characters instead. Level ups may or may not be a thing in takeover. That's still a very iffy thing. Unknown mounts will not be a thing in takeover at all. I'm pretty sure I said this in devlog number 1. The scope of the roster should contain about 12 characters, if I'm not mistaken. So that's the scope of the base release of takeover. I do plan on adding more DLC characters as time goes on, but none of the DLC released for takeover will be as big as the Claws of Steel update for Rise. Endless was way too much for one update, and it's part of the reason the last update for Rise got cut in content quite a bit. In the last update of Rise, the Restoration update, I have not really talked about it here, but it's mostly just bug fixes, graphical things, stuff like that. It's not adding any new gameplay elements, though, is what I'm saying. Just graphical tweaks, if necessary, stuff like that. Bug fixes, nothing that affects gameplay, no new stuff that affects gameplay, of course, bug fixes, but no new content is what I'm saying for Restoration. The Restoration update, which I'm expecting that should be out by the end of the month. I'm fixing a lot of bugs right now. That's why this will be the last Rise update, period. No more bug fixes after Restoration, unless the bugs are something caused directly from something added in Restoration, which nothing in that Restoration will be added, like playable characters or a new stage or anything like that, but there will be like graphical things, like there will be more cutscene stuff going on in Restoration, which I know that's kind of a spoiler, but it's the last update for Rise. No one's gonna watch this video probably because it's not showing any new gameplay. The video is already gonna be like over 3 minutes long because I'm looking at the timestamp and it is, and there's nothing interesting. So I'll put some stuff on screen showing off what's gonna be showing off the future stuff in takeover. So the next playable character, and the one I'm working on right now, is Skullgrin, which the only real moves you're going to have that's the same as Rise is the dash and the slash move, which will be a 3-hit combo. That's a thing basically every character will have, is a 2 or 3-hit combo. The Skullgrin's will be a 2 more than likely, where he's like the fast character. Combo ability is a thing he's going to be focusing on more with his skills rather than just that. So yeah. His other 2 skills, though, and his super, are kind of going to have to be brand new, as he did nothing else in Rise at all. So yeah. Might actually give him a teleportation skill, because if you guys don't know, so in Maximus 1, Resurrectus was a recolor of Spectre, and Skullgrin's dash is based off of Spectre's move from from Maximus 1. So I took Skullgrin, and I colored him red and removed his arms and gave him a new head to make Resurrectus. So that's where Resurrectus comes from. He's a recolor of a character based on Spectre from Maximus 1, and Resurrectus in Maximus 1 was a recolor of Spectre, so that's why Resurrectus is a recolor of Skullgrin. I might give him Skullgrin a teleportation skill in Takeover, because, spoiler alert, Resurrectus won't be in Takeover at all, so this would make sense. Now, the next playable character I'm working on will be, gonna go ahead and reveal this to the general public, is Sentinel from Rise, which again, that's one of DGM's characters, which is the third time one of his characters has been playable. Probably won't be the last in Takeover, but yeah, Sentinel will be the third character I work on, because, mostly because all of his moves are already picked out from Rise. I think I only need to add the super, because his normal attack, his normal basic attack won't be, I'm pressing my finger like that because that's the button you press. God, I'm an idiot. But his basic skill will not be the arrows. It will be a 3-hit combo. And his first skill will be the arrows, second will be the roll, third will be the jump. His super will, there's many things it could be. Probably going to have to ask DGM about this because, you know, Sentinel's his creation. Duh. But the current idea is a barrage of arrows, which someone suggested that. If you know who you are, thumbs up, CK. But whatever. I don't know how I'm supposed to say his name, but whatever. I don't know how to say a lot of names in the general whatever this world is that Takeover and Rise take place in, but I made most of them, but I just haven't said a lot of them out loud. The ones I haven't made are either from Lolo Rico, which I don't know how to say Lolo Rico. I don't know how to say it because I've never said it out loud before. And the other third are from the Four Fats universe, and the last third are weird amalgamations that I made, like Usurper. Am I an egotist for making Usurper the main character of Takeover? I feel like I'm an egotist for doing that. Nah, probably not. I am making the game, so it's whatever. But yeah. In terms of other things that you should be expecting for Takeover, the second stage, which is forest themed, specifically the forest from BM1, should be the first stage released to the public. The first public build will contain Usurper and Skullgrin as the playables, and the forest as the only level. And then the next update will be the full game. That test build will be the only public build until the full game releases. So yeah, there will be private builds that show off other parts of the game and stuff. And if you played Rise 1 while the builds are still being released, yes, and I guess post updates and stuff, your save progress will be stored in between new updates. So that's an advantage, I guess. Black Book wise, there will be some differences. Instead of the Black Book unlocking all individually with stages, it'll unlock entries when you kill an enemy. So when you kill a Chaos minion for the first time, his entry will unlock in the Black Book. The reason for this is because it's kind of convoluted and endless in Rise 1 for you to get an entry for Trooper or Paladin, even though just because of random chance, you may not encounter Trooper, Paladin, or either of the endless mounts. There's a chance you'll only encounter one Crablantian by the time you unlock all the Black Book entries for Endless, or not encounter either of the mounts by the time, either of the new mounts by the time you beat Endless. I mean fight the boss at the end of Endless to unlock all their entries. There's a chance that won't even happen. So instead of that happening here in Takeover, which it probably won't because Endless won't be a thing, whenever you kill an enemy or unlock a character, their entry will unlock in the Black Book. The rest of the time, it will be a lock symbol, however. So that's how the Black Book will work in Takeover. I feel like this is a much more elegant solution than Rise had. And I do prefer this over how the Black Book worked in BM2. So that's how we're going. The BM2 solution was kind of iffy, but whatever. So that's how Takeover should go overall in terms of all that. There will be cutscenes in between stages. There will be an intro cutscene from the beginning instead of sometime middle of development like Rise had. There will be endings, stuff like that. The intro cutscene will more than likely be in the first test build when that releases, but there will not be a cutscene before or after Forest, as you guys will not have any sort of story context when you get to the Forest stage in Takeover, in that first test build, because you won't know why the characters are in the forest, because this game's very story-driven, unlike Rise was, which was just going from location to location. This game actually has an order of events. There's a reason why all the characters are going through this particular path. So you won't have any context of why they're going to Forest, so we're cutting the intro bit before that until the game releases, and we're cutting everything after that as well, so there won't be a cutscene for beating the stage. Now, so when you beat Stage 2, by the way, in this test build, no, your progress will not save. You will have to beat Stage 2 again when Takeover fully comes out. The main reason for this is because, obviously, if you've already beaten Stage 2, then you can just skip Stage 1 when that releases. I'm doing Stage 2 first, because Stage 1 is not a traditional level. It's very cinematic in terms of what it is. You have to run away from enemies at a certain point. There is no boss at the end, stuff like that. So I'm doing Stage 2 first, as it's a very traditional level, probably the second most traditional level in the whole game. So I'm doing it first because it's the first level in the game that's traditional, has a boss at the end, stuff like that, and it's a really good way to test the gameplay. I feel like that's all I really want to say about Takeover for at the moment, other than one more thing, and that's why I'm making it. So, if you've been on the 4Fats server, link in the description for once, if you've been on the 4Fats server, you've noticed that a meme that went around for a little bit, and pops back in occasionally, is a villains update for Rise. And that's a thing that at one point was planned for Rise, unironically. Now, this has been scrapped because the scope of this update slowly got bigger, and then really quickly grew out of proportion. So, basically, the plan currently is take that idea and turn it into a full game. That's why Usurper's the main character, because he's probably the most popular villain from Rise. That's why Skullgrin's a playable character, because he's probably the most prevalent enemy in Rise, appearing in 3 of the 5 levels in Rise. Gruntus technically appears more often, but Gruntus can be killed in one hit by almost every skill, so whatever. Yes, Gruntus will be in Takeover. He's actually the only returning enemy in Takeover. That's the same, that serves the same purpose. Obviously, Skullgrin returns, but he's not a normal enemy now. Obviously, Chaos Minion returns, but he's not a mini-boss anymore. So, Gruntus is the only returning enemy that serves the same purpose, and he will be in 1 level. So, that's the reason I'm making Takeover. Also, I really didn't want to make a complicated add-on for Rise again, when Rise already has so many problems. So this add-on wouldn't be able to live up to its full potential. So turning this into its full game with a lot of the problems from Rise fixed, like the glitchy hitboxes, changed to be less terrible. They can still be iffy sometimes, but they function most of the time and they're much better. The skill system is much more in-depth this time around. Combos are a thing for every character, unlike in Rise, where I added them to Zamba in the last update of the game. So that was kind of interesting. Speaking of combos for Rise, Woofius and Anubarak will have combos, more than likely when the Restoration update finally releases, as they're characters that could benefit from it. Monty may or may not, as that axe swing is really, really good as is, and he doesn't really need more depth, as he is probably the most broken character in the game. Pan will not, as the arrow system, duh. Ghostface and Jugger will not, as both of their moves do knock back, so there's no real reason to give them combos, because the enemy that they're comboing won't get hit by the second or third attack if they're knocked halfway across the screen. Not halfway across the screen, but you get the idea. Hyperboles and whatnot. But that's basically all I wanted to say about the Restoration update, I think. I think that's all I needed to say about Takeover as well. Let me think, yeah. Oh yeah, one more thing, Rise 2. So, why isn't this game called Rise 2? And that's because Rise 2 is a thing that may or may not exist eventually. The reason this isn't Rise 2 is because, story-wise, this is obviously an offshoot. You're following the villains from Rise 1 doing random stuff. Not just the villains from Rise 1, but a majority of the roster is villains from Rise 1. like Usurper, for example, Skullgrin, etc. That's really what this is. Not every villain will be in the roster, obviously. Schlurgle's not, for example. I do not know how you say Schlurgle's name, and no one has corrected me in the previous devlogs, so we're sticking with Schlurgle. He will not be a playable, dies the final boss. Lithitus is a possibility eventually, but he's not releasing with the base roster. He has enough moves and whatnot, but he's not releasing with the base roster, as that's already packed, pretty much. So that's pretty much it, I think, with the whole Rise 1 and 2 thing. If Rise 2 does ever happen, it will be following most of the heroes from Rise 1. Not all of them, but if Rise 2 ever happens, expect half the roster to be new characters. Which Rise 2, again, may or may not happen. There's a whole other, line of projects down the road. So that's basically going to wrap this up. I just wanted to talk about what Takeover and Rise are, what the future might be. There is a project planned after Takeover. I'm not going to say anything about that. If you know, you know. There's really only 2 or 3 people that know. I'm one of those 2 or 3 people, so I don't know why I said that, but whatever. So that's basically everything I wanted to say, so I'm going to go ahead and end this. Yes, I should start scripting these. Do I? No. Will I ever? No, because this is hilarious for you guys to watch, and it is painful for me to rewatch.